Hey guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to share with you a homeschool update, and this has turned into basically a major homeschool declutter. So what happened was I shared briefly in my last video, so go check that out, where I go into a little more detail about where this is coming from. I found some pretty disturbing content in a so-called Christian curriculum I was using, and so I decided this cannot be in our home anymore. We will not be using it. So basically I dug through everything I had. Like you do, you keep stuff in the closet, and I was going through like boxes of things that we had stored in our basement and trying to see exactly what I had maybe left over from my other kids that we could use. So mainly the problem came with my 9-year-old's curriculum he was using, because I was using The Good and the Beautiful, and we were just doing it for free. We were getting the online free version of it. I was just printing it off as we go. Thankfully, I was doing it with him, so I was seeing, things in there with him, and I will do more of a review on this and go into detail as to exactly why we are no longer going to allow this into our home in another video. So definitely stay tuned for that later on, because that will be coming. When I decided we weren't going to use that anymore, actually he was relieved because he didn't like it. I really wasn't liking it either. We were not enjoying using this curriculum anyways. And so, I was already thinking we'd be switching, but when I saw the things I did, it was a done deal. There was no question that we would not be using this anymore. It was just like, okay, that's it then. So, we're right in the middle of a school year. This is November of 2023. So this is like, I don't have, money set aside to just go buy new curriculum. I was using this free curriculum because it's easy, it's simple, and obviously free. So anyways, basically we have decided to kind of start fresh. I haven't fully figured out what I'm going to do. I have figured out what I'm not going to do. So I've gone back to my roots and how I initially, when I first started homeschooling, I was looking into more of, a living education model. So more of what you would even call the Hebrew education model. So in our school systems, it's more of a Greek education system, where they are just trying to feed them as much content as possible, as efficiently as possible, and just have them memorize and repeat it back. So it's about just cramming content. So the Hebrew education system is more of context and relationship building and learning from, like, your teacher is a model, not just somebody who feeds you information, but somebody who actually walks alongside you and teaches you as they take you under their wing. So we were trying to go more of the Hebrew model, but as you know, that isn't as easy to do as the other way, where it's like, here's a great curriculum, I think, that you can just do, and you can create independent learners. Now that's the other thing, maybe trap I have fallen into, is I was a very independent learner growing up. I enjoyed being able to just get my workbooks done and hand them in, and I was done. I was very efficient at it. I was very fast, and then I would get it done and go do what I wanted to do. So that's kind of the model I had, even though I was in a Christian private school. I don't know that the curriculum was bad per se, but that's what it was. It was very, get the work done, turn it in, learn it for the test, the end. So that's kind of my learning style. And then my daughter's learning style is the same. She likes to be very independent, and I really like that. I really like that it's like, here's your work, you can do it, turn it in for me to check it, and I don't have to sit there and teach. So I have really strived to cultivate independent learning with my kids. Now, I think maybe that can be taken to extremes, to a fault, where if you don't know what it is they're learning, if you have like someone else's curriculum that you're using, and that's across the board, like that can be Christian, secular, anything. If you don't know specifically this person or person's viewpoints, then you don't know what your child is really learning until maybe after the fact. Like, if they turn it in and you look it over or whatever. And of course you flip through and you kind of get an idea, but it's not the same as walking alongside them and maybe even learning with them and seeing what they're learning. So that is something that I will need to be more diligent with for sure going forward. And so here's what I have been looking at. Originally, we were in a rural location when we first started homeschooling at the very beginning with my daughter, my oldest, and we did a lot of nature experiences. We were outside a lot. I tried to keep them outside at least as much as they were inside, all of us, and we did gardening and we just hiked around, explored the woods at our home, and that was really the model I wanted. And then we ended up having to move, and I was very sick and I was bedridden for a while. So at that point, I ended up getting some workbooks, textbooks, things that they could do more on their own, even though I was ill and not able to be up and doing a lot with them physically. And then that sort of continued through more moves. So now I'm kind of coming back around full circle and reevaluating, like, how did we get here? And I would just encourage you to consider where you are at this point in your homeschool journey or even in your parenting. Like, was this your aim? And if you are not at the place, like if we aren't where we wanted to be, what happened? Like, where did the aim go wrong? So I'm coming back around full circle to try to figure out, where did we go wrong? Which I have said, I kind of pinpointed where we switched over. Not saying workbooks and that sort of stuff is bad. And I do think kids need to be kept busy, give them good, wholesome things they can do. So, I'm not saying all that's bad, but it can definitely get unbalanced. So I wanted to read to you, this is directly from the Moore Academy website. They say the Greek teaching method focuses on content, Hebrew focuses on context. Greek method, teaching seeks to shape a student's mind. Hebrew method seeks to shape a student's heart. Students under the Greek method learn what the teacher knows. Students under the Hebrew method pattern themselves after what their teacher is. Greek method teaching is efficiency-driven. Hebrew method teaching is relationship-driven. And from a biblical standpoint, because we are a Christian home and we do want our kids to have a biblical basis to their education, that means, we want them to have a biblical approach with their education all the way around, not just biblical character and kind of a roundabout, like, well, yeah, that matches the Bible, but we actually want it to be where the Bible is the basis. So this says the biblical approach is Hebrew by nature. It means it's relationship driven. Using the Hebrew method, the child stays within the family for education, strengthening the family bonds, and learning how to be a warrior for the faith. This way, the child's loyalties lie with the family, and the choices he makes will be for the benefit of his family and for the glory of God. In the Greek method, knowledge is separated and organized into subjects and implemented through curricula. Unit studies are a step in the right direction. However, when they are used in the Greek method, they're still in the pagan form because of the use of the classics and non-scriptural works, rather than the Hebrew form, which is scriptural. Greek education relies on the teacher's knowledge and tools, like curriculum, while the Hebrew education relies on the teacher's love for the student. Jesus walked with his disciples and taught by example. He did not give classes or instruction. They walked in the way together, and this is the Hebrew method of education. So how do you put that into practical use? Now that is where it gets, I think, difficult to try to wrap your mind around what that looks like on the day-to-day. So I haven't figured it all out yet. I do believe there is still a place for foundational curricula. So we will still be doing like, a language arts English program and like math. As far as everything else goes, we definitely like to try to get it more of practical application and using books to serve us rather than serving them. So if you have to do a certain amount per day just to get through this, that's you serving the curriculum. But if you are using like even library books, and of course you have to be careful there as well with what content is in there, but if you are like researching based on things that are of interest and are inspiring and character building and uplifting, then those things are serving you and your child to make them a better person and to strengthen their God-given talents and natural abilities. And also to work on character flaws and weaknesses. So I believe that's where, I as the parent am going to come in and see what strengths and weaknesses each child has, and then be able to tailor things like, well, let's do this because you love it and it'll be fun and inspiring for them. And also working on the weaknesses. We're like, this is a weak spot for you, so why don't we use that as a project and try to strengthen that area? So as far as what we're going to do, that remains to be seen. I think we've got a pretty good foundation. I've had this in the back of my mind all this time. I really like to review the More Formula Manual. Now, I'm not totally promoting the More Academy. I don't pay them, they don't pay me. It's just something I have found useful. I like the philosophy of it. So I do like this book because it has really good foundational concepts in it. I don't follow it completely. I use it as kind of an inspiration and a springboard to help me stay on track. So what they promote is doing a lot of unit studies. We have done unit studies in the past, and I think they can be really useful. I don't know if you necessarily have to call it a unit study, but basically where you're looking at topics and big picture things, and just instead of doing all writing, be more creative with how you're presenting the work. So some field trips, although we're not heavy on the field trips, doing more of like some presentations or projects where they're building something. So in that way, bringing together, culminating what they've learned and presenting versus just, here's a worksheet, I did answering questions. So, and again, that depends on each child. My daughter enjoys writing papers, and she also likes crafting and making things. So those are good ways for her. My son has always done more orally because he has dyslexia, and so that's been a way to, test what he knows and remembers and get thought process that he's having and understand where he's coming from and what he's getting from everything. As for my youngest son, he's still in some foundational pieces, still learning, basic math and getting better at reading. So I do need to figure out what we're going to do for him. For now, I have dug out a few things here. I had this from Rod and Staff. It's just patterns of nature. So this is just a really nice nature science kind of workbook. I know I said I wasn't going to do as much workbooks, and that is true. This one I do love, and I thought we'd try it because I had it and neither of my other kids used it. So I just started reading it to my 9-year-old, and he really loves it. And we aren't necessarily doing all the workbook stuff, but we are just answering questions and enjoying the nature study. For reading, for now, we are using this shared reader from the Psalms. Basically, each day we just go through, and I divided up kind of each section into a day, and we read and study a psalm together. So I have done this with my other son before, so it's already marked up. But you have them read with you, the bold or more, if depending on their reading level, and then you study the words from the psalm and work on marking like the long and the short vowels and things like that, learning new vocabulary, learning some spelling. And then for math, for now, we are using math it. I like the math it approach for foundational. It does like adding and multiplication. Just get those facts down and think of it in a different way, and to do math as a game. So for now we're using that. We will be using something else. This is sort of our interim, and I think it's good to take a step back and to make things fun again, because we were really kind of in a rut. So I have used this several times, like with all of my kids. We have used this when we get in a rut, or when things just aren't clicking, or you just need to break things up. So I would highly suggest, having things like that, where if you're getting in a rut, you can step back and just be like, hey, let's just take a break and do things a little differently and see if we can get out of that rut. Now, for my daughter, we started out using, for Spanish, the ULAT. She didn't really like it. And I thought it was okay. We were watching it as a family, but she didn't like the style, and so that's fine. So we need to figure out something else to do there. She's been doing Duolingo, but we won't be using Duolingo anymore. And I will talk about that in another video as well, but that absolutely will not be happening in our house either. So basically, we're finding some pretty disturbing things in quite a few different areas. So I think my overall thing I have learned is that nothing is neutral. There is content coming in all avenues that is meant to indoctrinate your children and teach them whatever the agenda is of that creator, whether it's good or bad. So I'm having a hard time figuring out how I can use any curriculum without knowing the agenda of the person. And I don't know if you can. So I guess what you can do is this. You can get the curriculum, look through it carefully, and skip the areas that you disagree with. We've done that plenty, and that's, okay. 2, if it's something like I found in what we were using, where I don't even want my child laying eyes on that, then we're getting rid of that completely. And probably if I had seen it first, because I didn't see it till we were already on that page, I would have just taken that out and we would have skipped it. The other thing I think would be to discuss it depending on the child's age, and go ahead and discuss why we don't believe this, why this is unbiblical and not something that we agree with, and that they have a different belief system, but here's why we don't believe that is true based on the Bible. And we have done that as well. And so that definitely is, I think all of those are appropriate depending on the child's age, as well as where they are in their spiritual walk. We have used various religions, curricula, and so I feel like when you do that, you are more aware of this is what they believe and here's what the difference is between us. Like, we kind of always have that discussion when we start, like, hey, this is this religion, this is where it differs from ours, and so you're looking for that. The problem comes where they don't necessarily say that they are that religion, or they say we don't put any of our religion in it, and then you don't know what's coming. And you can't be on the lookout for these specific things. And you think it's going to be neutral, but like I said, nothing's neutral. So, I think we just obviously have to pray for wisdom and be as diligent and on guard as we can and in God's word, and teaching our kids the biblical principles as we are learning them as well, and model those things, and then leave the rest up to God. But I also don't think we should blindly be bringing in curriculum and other things to our home thinking it's okay, it's fine, it's no big deal, it's innocuous, because in the last days, things are going to get even more blatantly for the good or for the evil, and we're all going to have to choose. And teaching our children to be defenders of the faith, then they need to be solid in what they believe and not in this wishy-washy, it's all okay. It's all okay, you believe what you want to believe. No, there is a right and a wrong. So at this point in our homeschool, I am trying to get more serious about teaching the things that are important, even things that are maybe not bad, but are not that important, we're letting go of that. So a ton of books that I don't think are necessarily bad, but maybe aren't the best use of our time, we're also getting rid of those. So that's where we are. I'd be happy to keep you posted on where this goes and what it looks like later. Right now, my 9-year-old is really loving that we're not using, the workbooks we were using before. He's so happy to be taking a step back from that. He actually, what he enjoys the most for reading is reading straight up from the Bible. And that has been really nice. And I have done that before with my other son, where it's like, you know what, let's just cut all the fluff and go straight to the Word. Obviously, it depends on the version you use as to how that goes too, and there's a learning curve there. But I have found good progress when we go that route, even though it doesn't seem like you're doing like as detailed of reading instruction. It's amazing the progress there and just the deeper understanding and comprehension that comes with going straight to the Word. So that's what I have for updates so far. I will let you know in the future what we end up doing if I get more curriculum, and I'm definitely going to be sharing what I found about a few of these things we were using, why we won't be using it anymore, and things to be on the lookout for, because we as keepers of the home need to be on our guard. That's what we are, is the gatekeepers and the guardians and the curators of our home. So thanks so much for joining. I'll see you guys next time.